Hi. I thought what I would do today in this update is to talk with you about a research project I and a number of other of the members of the Scheinman Institute have been engaged in over the last several years that's now drawing to a conclusion. It's a project that's been analyzing comparatively how the various public agencies involved in conflict resolution in six English speaking countries have been evolving their roles. We looked at not only the United States in this project, but there are research teams in Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Ireland. And we've been conducting research together with an overarching framework for the last 3 years. The research was delayed a bit by the pandemic, but we've recently made a lot of progress and we're moving forward at the stage where there are country papers, cases essentially, that have been prepared by the various research teams. And we're putting those together into final form to submit to a journal. It'll come out as a symposium issue. First, we have to go through formal review process with that academic journal, but we anticipate that will proceed. We'll be posting the U.S. paper within a few weeks on the Scheinman website. So I'm now at the stage where I'm ready to talk about it. I should add that I've been involved, Alex Colvin, Ariel Avgar, and Katrina Nobles on the U.S. side. And then we've been coordinating this project with the Irish team that's led by Bill Roche, Paul Teague, and Denise Curry. And again, there's separate research teams from within those other four countries doing the research. So we focused in particular on this project on not just public agencies more broadly, but we've tried to look at the dominant or the major public agency in each respective country. Now, that's actually feasible in a lot of the countries. It's harder to do that in the United States because the United States has an extremely fragmented approach through which public agencies get involved in conflict resolution. In that way, we're kind of an outlier and in contrast to the other five countries. But nonetheless, in the U.S., we did focus on the agency we think is the really a significant player in conflict management, and that's the FMCS. But we also recognize the role of the courts, because court litigation gets involved in settling workplace disputes, the EEOC, the NLRB. In the public sector, there's state-level public employee relations boards that are really important agencies. Whereas in other countries, there's often a single agency. That's part of the interesting comparison that emerges in our research. Well, I'm not going to go through all the findings, but let me just mention a few of them. One is there's some common pressures in all these countries. Those include the growth in non-regular employment, the increase in individual complaints being brought forward at the workplace, complaints often involving charges of discrimination or bullying or harassment. And then also there's a decline in unionism and in collective bargaining and collective processes in all six of these English-speaking countries. As a result of those common pressures, there's some common trends across the countries. That includes a growth in ADR and some use and expansion of private arbitrators. I might add that that growth is unusually large in the United States, where private arbitrators and mediators play a really critical role. I'll get in a second to why that's the case in the U.S. And in addition, in all of the countries, they've had to wrestle with the question as individual disputes have grown, as the union sector has declined, how conflict resolution will proceed in their respective and often growing non-union sector. Well, here's just a few highlights of the differences across the countries. The U.S., as I've mentioned, has an extremely fragmented approach within public agencies to conflict resolution, with many different agencies involved. In a number of these other five countries, we find much more coordination, integration, in the way conflict is addressed. There's often one key agency in Australia, a tribunal system in Ireland and some of the other countries. There's a workplace commission that deals not only with disputes relating to unionized workers, not only dealing with collective issues, but the same agency addresses individual disputes, including individual disputes within the non-union sector. Some of that's a product of the fact that there are labor courts in other countries, but some of it's also based on the mission and the reorientation of their public agencies, who in the past might have been fragmented, one agency dealing with issues in the union sector, another with non-union, one dealing with collective disputes, another dealing with individual disputes. In a number of countries other than the United States, there's been an effort underway in recent years to have a more coordinated, integrated approach to conflict management at the workplace. Again, there's also some common themes. I've mentioned some of those already. I do want to just finish by highlighting another common theme is that all of these agencies in the 6 countries, by our assessment, have adapted both extensively and quite well to the pandemic and the growth in a virtual communication. In many countries, including the United States, arbitration hearings or mediations now take place virtually over Zoom or MS Teams or some other technology. And that growth has been quite extraordinary, and it seems that it's not one that's going away with the fortunate passing of the pandemic. The parties have learned how to solve disputes through virtual hearings. They often save a lot of money by not having to travel to hearings. It's easier to bring in key parties into a critical hearing. And that's an important development we see emerging in recent years in all of the 6 countries. Again, the degree to which that's occurring varies somewhat across the countries, but nonetheless, it's a prevalent trend. Well, I've only touched on some of our findings. We'll be posting our U.S. case paper on the Scheinman website within a couple of weeks. At some point, we'll also post the case papers from the other 5 countries. And again, we'll also be moving forward, preparing those papers for publication in an academic journal. I hope you found this synopsis of our research interesting. Take care.